the sleep duration and mortality has also been related. That the people who are short sleepers,
They die faster.
Alcohol actually is one of the commonest aids, and people are telling each other that, don't worry, if you can't sleep, just take a drink, you'll fall asleep.
Or maybe smoke up.
So the melatonin has considerably gone up in billions, the production the pharma has made. So all these things are some signs that we should seek help.
If we are doing the work, like taking work at 9 p.m. and there's some firefighting happens, all of a sudden your stress cortisol
is very high. So it's spiking. So this will result in raised blood pressure, raised blood sugars, increased chances of having cardiac events. It's like a mega stress inflammatory response going on. We have in fact more than 80 or 90 sleep conditions, and some person can have 2 or 3 types.
Is it possible for people to absolutely function perfectly by sleeping 4 to 6 hours?
There are a very small fraction, and that fraction is maybe less than 5%, who need less than 6 hours.
Did you know that India ranks as the second most sleep deprived country in the world after Japan? 55% of people are getting less than 6 hours of sleep a night. It's a national health emergency. And that's why today's episode is not just important, it's crucial. We have Dr. Manvir Bhatia, a renowned neurologist and sleep specialist with over 30 years of experience. She is the director of the Sleep and Neurology Center in Delhi. She has served as the chairperson, sleep medicine at Fortis, Medanta and Sir Gangaram Hospital. Dr. Manvir Bhatia is at the forefront of sleep research and education in India. She has been awarded extraordinary contribution in sleep medicine for the year 2017 for increasing the awareness of sleep medicine throughout. This is the most comprehensive conversation around the topic of sleep in a podcast in India. Let's get started. Dr. Manvir Bhatia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
We have had conversations on several topics on the podcast, but we have never gotten to have conversation about sleep. And I think there's a lot of conversation that's going on around the importance of sleep lately. While a lot of people see sleeping is less productive of a job, like, hey, you got to be working all the time. So let's begin by talking about why do we need to sleep?
So I think a very important question and an apt question to start with. If you were to just think about life, and we spend about 1/3 of our lifespan, that's because of you think that we spend about 7 to 8 hours out of the 24 hours in sleep. So it must have a purpose. So this purpose is, with the advent of science and discoveries and all the gadgets that we have at our disposal now, it's still being unraveled. So it's undergone a lot of changes. Let's say in the 50s, it was almost thought that sleep is a very passive process. You go to sleep, the brain shuts down, body shuts down, and you wake up. That's in total contrast to what we see now. And in fact, sleep is a very active process. When we say active, that means lots of things are happening in the body and the brain in those time that we are sleeping. And those things, which we can go into more detail, are essential for us to be productive, creative, happy, healthy, all put together. So sleep is, according to us and also to the sleep specialists and the world itself now, it's considered in fact as a third pillar of health in addition to diet, nutrition, exercise. Not only that, some people say it is the base on which the health stands. So everything is kind of linked.
Yeah. So you are one of the first people in India to sort of, start in a medical organization, the sleep division and so on and so forth. So how have you seen the patients, the people who would come to you maybe, 3 decades back to now the kind of people, who come to you, how this has sort of changed? What is there something that you see drastic change or something that concerns you as a doctor?
So first thing, yes, it's markedly changed. So when I first got into this field, which when I was at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, there was only one AIIMS that time, had got trained overseas and come and started the sleep clinic. it was thought that, who's going to walk in as a patient and say, I have a sleep disorder. So that's the kind of initial thought that we had, and it was rough. I mean, that maybe if you sit in an AIMS OPD where you have lines outside every clinic, you'd get maybe very few, 2-3 types, and that's so over the years. But let's say fast forward 10 years, we started getting more, 20 years even more, and today we can say that, we are booked totally, there is a waiting time. So there is a lot of awareness, in short. So people are coming forth themselves with sleep issues. So which I find has been a remarkable change, that they themselves have realized that this is an issue and I need to deal with it. So that's a big change, what has happened. What are the things that are coming forward with? All kinds of problems and all kinds of ages. So often we've been asked the question that, what is the age group you get? What is the commonest complaint you get? So yes, by and large, the commonest complaint is poor sleep. So, but that poor sleep, we have to go into a lot of depth about this poor sleep. So what does this poor sleep mean? So you can't fall asleep. Does the sleep break a lot? Are you tired in the day? And what is the impact on the day? Are you moody, irritable, concentration? So all those things. Lots of impact about your other medical conditions, any other medicines that you are having, any hobbies. And then there is this whole entity now as voluntary sleep restriction, we call it. Meaning that you are on your phone, so one is work related. Shift work is a big condition, but I'm talking about voluntary sleep restriction, meaning that I voluntarily don't go to sleep at the time that I should. So that is an entity called as sleep deprivation. So lots of sleep issues. We have in fact more than 80 or 90 sleep conditions, and some person can have 2 or 3 types. So it takes a lot of unraveling. It's like a mystery which you have to solve. So you need at least minimum 30, 40, 45 minutes with a patient to understand their complete problem.
Got it. So we are going to try and unravel some of that mystery in this conversation. So for somebody who has never looked at, like, hey, you know what, like you said, this can also be a problem. Like if I'm not falling asleep, or if my sleep is, gets broken during the night, just to understand that, hey, you know what are the basics, what I need to know about sleep? What are the few things that you want people to know about their sleep?
So there was this lot of research about this, and you're right, people felt that the person themselves does not realize I have a sleep problem. So you see, when you have fever, you realize I have fever because you measure it, your warm, body aches, etc. You have a headache, it's a symptom. Now the sleep issue, I have a sleep issue, and people still go round and round, they don't know what to do about it. So there was this terminology which was developed, which was something called as sleep health. So, WHO has definitions on health. There was a concept of heart health a long time ago, but this was a new thought about sleep health. So what should one look at when you're looking at sleep? So basically there are these few things that are very important. One, so it's the acronym is called as SATED. That means your sleep timing, what is your alertness level, what is your duration, what is your efficiency, and how are you in your day. So keeping just briefly, you just need to ask an individual how, or to put it even shorter and a much more concise manner, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Are you rested? Or do you want to go back to bed? Are you tired? So, that saying which was there, that have you got off the wrong side of the bed? So that saying, I feel now is appropriate because we know that sleep has a mood regulation impact. Or somebody used to say, sleep on it. If you want a solution to your problem, sleep on it. So now we know that while you are sleeping, the brain is processing, so you will get a solution. So there have been big musicians who've written music at night when they've woken up and put things down. They have been artists. So the brain, all this just proves that the brain is very active, and people need to recognize this much earlier, that how do I feel when I wake up in the morning? and how do I feel in the day. If I'm sitting in a meeting and I tend to doze off, if I'm trying to do some work and I feel that I'm just going this, this word again, which has become very popular, is something called as brain fog. I'm not the best that I was or I should be. These are very subtle symptoms. Other ones are, of course, are things like snoring. So snoring, loud snoring, persistent snoring, disturbing the bed partners, choking at night, getting up to drink water is a symptom. Thrashing about at night, kicking, sleep talking, walking. I've had all kinds of conditions with people committing certain acts which they have no recall and they're very scared. I've had children who walked onto the balcony and opened a door. I've had a young boy who walked out of a glass door and cut up his arteries. So lots of things can be in all respects. I have a person who kind of fell off the bed thinking he's jumping off a plane. Somebody strangled the wife saying that there's a robber in the house. So it's a lot of symptoms are there. But like I said, people can have one symptom, can have mixtures. The other thing that I think we can just touch briefly is that sleep aids is where we should come in. What are the kind of things, if you feel that you are taking something to fall asleep, that's one of the first things that you should please seek help. So these sleep aids, alcohol actually is one of the commonest aids, and people are telling each other that, don't worry, if you can't sleep, just take a drink, you'll fall asleep. Then is the smoke, then is a substance which has come, and they are just advising each other. Then there are these tablets, so which I have seen in the families. The seniors tell the middle generation, and that person says, don't worry, I'm taking it, you also take it. So these kind of sleep aids which we are advising or advocating
or
to each
melatonin,
other.
chewing gums and whatnot.
Yeah, so the melatonin
Gums.
has considerably gone up in billions, the production the
Yeah.
pharma has made. So all these things are some signs that you should seek help.
Got it. So let's get to the, understanding of the role of, now that, we're talking about melatonin. Let's understand what that is, and, and you can maybe then touch upon why people are being sort of marketed that, oh, you know what, you need to start taking melatonin before somebody just pop in that pill or a chewing gum, whatever that is, right? Is there a way that they can try and do something at their home, or try and take charge of the melatonin? Maybe you can share what that is in the first place for the people who don't know, and then maybe we can get into the details of it.
So to understand this, we need to get a little background about what really controls sleep. So what makes us sleep, and the other way is what makes us stay awake in the day. So there are these two big systems which are in our body and which they are synchronized. That means they work together. One is a circadian system. In fact, they did win the Nobel Prize a few years ago on this. So it's an interesting concept that the circadian system functions on the circadian, there's a clock. So by simply we tell my same patients, I tell them that there is a master clock in the brain, but there are millions of clocks in all your body. So that master clock controls all the body clocks. And this master clock is regulated or controlled by the light outside. These are words which are called as Zeitgebers, but light, your drive for food, etc., they're all Zeitgebers. So they control your master clock. Now that means ideally, when the light goes off, it sends a message to the brain that the night has come. So the hormone called melatonin is secreted, which helps you to fall asleep. It helps you to stay asleep, and then the melatonin dips after the middle of the night, and then you wake up. So that's the cycle of the melatonin. Now then a second system is called as a sleep drive system. That's an inert or an innate biological system. That means the longer you stay awake, the sleep drive builds up. So it's something akin to your hunger system. So if I stay fasting for very long, I'm more hungry then, and you will tend to eat more. So similarly, if you stay awake for longer, the sleep drive is built up. So if you were to again go back onto the day and night, if you stay awake through the whole day, let's say whatever 7, 8 a.m. to whatever 10 p.m., that many hours the drive is building up, and that chemical is called adenosine. So it builds up. So melatonin starts coming, adenosine comes, they both come together and you fall asleep. Now let's say what can disrupt these two. So melatonin, the big disruptor is the light.
Yeah.
So the gadgets that we use, whether now there are a lot of these goggles and glasses and blue blockers and this and that, but that light will suppress your melatonin and tells your brain that it is day.
It's not night yet.
It's not night yet. So you please carry on in increasing or enhancing your day time. The caffeine that you take blocks your adenosine. So you say, okay, that's again day. So then you have pushed your night later and later. So this is what we call as a delayed sleep syndrome or a delayed sleep phase. I saw the person yesterday. So they start at 1, 2, 3, 4. Now he's sleeping at 5.
In the morning?
In the morning. And it's a routine. So 5 and they get up at noon. So you can imagine the impact on your health. So this is how we've pushed it. Now, what is the adverse effect about the day chemicals? So the day chemicals, so actually body is more like a chemical factory, we say. That some chemicals are coming on, some are shutting off. It's like an internal process. But we've started messing with it. And that's where the health is going. So the people who are circadian biologists, they feel that the root cause of all health issues is that we've messed up our day and night cycles. So this is only 2 chemicals I've talked about. We have day chemicals like cortisol, which everybody
Stress
understands, cortisol and stress hormone. So that's supposed to peak in the morning. Because you get up, you get that shot of whatever your cortisol shot. You have noradrenaline, you have histamine, you have dopamine, you have serotonin. They make you feel very good, very happy, very content, and you go through the day. Now, at night, they're supposed to get less.
Yeah.
But if you are awake at night, you are continuously pushing that cortisol and adrenaline.
Plus, if we are doing the work, like taking work at 9 p.m. and there's some firefighting happens, then all of a sudden your stress, cortisol
is very high. So it's spiking. So this will result in raised blood pressure, raised blood sugars, increased chances of having cardiac events. It's like a mega stress inflammatory response going on. So there's so much talk now about inflammation and health. There is food, they say please take anti-inflammatory diet, please do this, cut the inflammation. But our habits, we are increasing the inflammation.
So what I could get from what you've just shared is try and get into the cycle. Try and follow the cycle of the sun. The easiest way to track this is...
So with the advent of lights, in fact, some biologists say that the light discovery is the one which disrupted the sleep, and then came the internet, and then that's where it's gone. So even if, we're not telling people that please go to bed by sunset, that is 7, 8 p.m., you can do an hour or 2 later, maybe something, but that's what it should be like.
Okay, so I'm going to quote a study here, and I want you to share on what are some of the worst case scenarios that you have seen when it comes to sleep deprivation, or when people have on a sustained period of time slept lesser than they should actually. And I have another interesting question which I'll ask after this. So Matthew Walker, one of the
I know him,
so sleep research, he said that there is a research that happens every year twice, where which is called as daylight saving, which is like just 1 hour, cutting down 1 hour, daylight. And during that time, people are sleeping less. And because of which, there was 24% increase in heart attacks. And when they gain an extra hour of sleep, there is 21% decrease in heart attacks. So, this was shocking to me.
So, in addition to this, there are now other numerous studies as well. Especially, they have shown studies in high school teens, that when there is sleep deprivation, the accident rate is much higher those days. So the motor vehicle accident. Then they have also related this to substance abuse. They have related the impact of this to scholastic performance. And the sleep duration and mortality has also been related. That the people who are short sleepers,
they die faster.
The people who are very long, more than 9 hours, also health is impacted, death. So the two major impacts are morbidity, we call illness, and mortality is death.
Okay, hang in there. So you're saying the people who sleep more than 9 hours
is also not good.
Okay.
So it's a U-shaped curve.
Why is that?
So we have risks at both ends, short sleepers and long sleepers. So we are supposed to be staying in the middle.
Which is 7 to 9, 8.
7 to 8, 8.5 for adults. So we have different for children, different for elderly, but roughly adults is 7 to 8.5.
What are some of the, effects that you have seen in people who have ignored sleep for a longer duration
so
of
if
time?
we kind of put the sleep, I talked about some symptoms, but if you put them broadly into categories, so first symptom is that I can't sleep. So those people I have seen that they have developed severe depression, severe anxiety, almost to the point of suicidal tendencies. So, but having said that, let's go back a bit and say that the mental health and sleep are very closely related, and they have what is called as a bi-directional relationship. Meaning that if the sleep is not good, you are at risk to develop depression and anxiety. In fact, 30 to 40% can. And it can be, now we know that it could be a precedent or it can come first, a predecessor, and then the depression anxiety will come if not treated. Other way around is also there, that people who have depression anxiety have poor sleep as their symptom, and we need to improve it to improve them.
Got it.
So these people are on multiple drugs, not getting controlled, very bad sleep timing, sleeping at 5, 6, very anxious, not able to sleep. Yesterday I saw this lady, she's sleeping 1 hour per night according to her, is very tense and she's crying. If you're sitting in front of you, you can make out that life is just miserable. So that's the insomnia part. Then I have seen people who have, so we have certain limits of how much a medication should be used if used for sleeping. They are taking 10 times to 20 times that pill and still coming and saying that I'm not sleeping. So the abuse potential of a medical agent has also become very high. Then we have people who are snoring. So if you are snoring with this gasping, choking, this condition called as sleep apnea, they've had a stroke, they could have had a cardiac event, they've had stents, heart can give up and cause cardiomyopathy. But all that has got missed because sleep apnea was not treated. Now they will come and say, yes, that was a possibility. And the bigger worry now is this entity called dementia. So sleep is very important for memory processing, memory formation, and cleaning of the brain. It's like a housekeeping which happens. So if we do not allow sleep or a good sleep, we are at risk for memory issues. So that's again another issue. So we've seen these. Some I've told you the worst scenarios that I can remember are these scary things where you can harm yourself. This boy, like I said, he was not in this country, he was outside, he was found walking in the snow with blood dripping, and actually he had ripped his artery because he walked out of a glass door, the double glass door.
Yeah, actually one of my cousin's husband, and she was just married to him, and they realized he had this problem of sleepwalking, and he was posted somewhere else for his job or maybe some training or event and stuff like that, and they were on the first floor and they were sleeping there, and at the night he walks out of the window and he was dropped dead.
See, so this kid, I can still, the parents that they came and they helped him. So, but it was very scary. So this is how. So sudden death can also happen in obstructive sleep apnea. That people keep asking that you slept. We've had a couple of important people dying with this sleep apnea. Then there are these issues like the pilot who dozed off.
A lot of people, now are developing this something called as sleep apnea. So for those, for me it was new because one of the mentors and and the investor in our company, he now sleeps with this equipment, machine, and because during his hustling years he was barely sleeping, and one of the things that he says is like, hey, do whatever you want to do as an entrepreneur, but don't mess with your sleep, because he has done that and he now sleeps with this machine and he can't sleep without that. So maybe we can share more on what sleep apnea is.
So what is sleep apnea? So as the word itself tells you, sleep is this word. Sleep apnea means a pause in breathing. So by criteria, because see, we have definitions for everything in medicine. So this is that the pause has to be 10 seconds or more for it to be significant. So, an obstructive sleep apnea happens to be a kind of sleep apnea where the breathing passage or pipe gets closed at night or obstructed. So that's how it is. What does it cause, or what are the symptoms? First is, of course, snoring, which is going on in people for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. I always ask people, so what brought you here today? It's been for long, but why did you come today? So it's either the snoring has become really very loud, or the partner has managed to convince them, or it is now affecting their own day. That they get up, they can't function, they need 3 cups of coffee. Somebody was driving from Delhi to Gurgaon, stops a couple of times, throws water, chews gum, slaps himself. I've heard all sorts of things how they keep themselves awake. Somebody was in a meeting and during the meeting dozed off and snored, and it was like, so people just kind of got really shocked. So things like that. So this is how they're snoring. Then there is gasping, choking, and the impact on the day, that you become tired, fatigued, sleepy, moody, irritable, angry, all that. Then the blood pressure starts rising. So they'll come and say, no, my blood pressure has always been okay. Today is the first day. So I say, okay, please go back and get it checked again. So BP will rise, sugars will rise, and you start getting, if you're younger, you will start entering that phase of a pre-cardiac kind of problem. Older, you will start, memory problems will start, forgetfulness will start, and things like that. So that's a sleep apnea. How do we confirm it? We confirm everything else. Like if somebody tells you have high blood pressure, you will check it. So similarly, if you have a doubt that this is sleep apnea, we have to do a test, which is called as a sleep study or a sleep test. This fortunately now can be done in numerous ways. So initially it was, and that still remains the gold standard, that we have lots of sensors we put on the brain, muscles, breathing, snoring, position that you are in, all that is recorded at night. And we are able to see what was the sleep quality, what was the breathing like, how many of these pauses happened, how much did the oxygen drop. And that's a full night test, usually requires a good technician, a very trained person to look at the report. Like the reporting takes 2 hours for us to report it. That's one part. Now we have simpler techniques also, which are self-hookup, that we give the patients the device, they wear it, and the device comes back. Now we have something like a ring also that people can wear and send it back. So it depends how much depth you are studying, what is the individual, and we have different ways in short of doing a sleep study.
Got it. Yeah, you mentioned about people forgetting things or memory being affected after sleep, and there is a very very popular story of this guy called Randy Gartner. I think it was in 1960s when he was just 17 years old, and he said, "I'm gonna break the world record by being the guy who's staying awake," and he ends up not sleeping for 11 days. And right after that he was made to do some very simple mathematical calculation where he was to just subtract 7 every time from 100 and go back to 0, and he stops at 65, and he couldn't figure anything out. And on the short term, everybody said that there's no problem of him not sleeping, and there's absolutely no problem. After 11 days he went on for 14 hours sleep, and then after that he slept for another 10 hours, and then the regular thing happened. And later on he developed sleep apnea, and he said, I can't sleep anymore now. And I was listening to him share his story on one of the podcasts, and he said, I don't I think this is my karma coming back and saying that you did that stunt when you were 17, now for the rest of your life you can't sleep, which was very, very interesting. Now, one of the things that I often hear, and mostly from the people who are, I'm sure you must have heard things like Prime Minister Modi saying that, just sleep for 4 hours, or maybe a lot of, yogic practitioners saying that, I can function with just like 4 to 5 hours. And even some of these people actually have said, I don't want to waste very important part of my life just sleeping, and this is some popular guru, where millions of people follow. Is it possible for people to absolutely function perfectly by sleeping 4 to 6 hours?
So, we actually are a little skeptical about this and don't want people to follow this to the T because, firstly, we have no objective data that really in 24 hours, how many hours sleep is there. So if you're in meditation and if you're doing some of these kriyas, you may enter into a light stage of sleep and come out. So whether there are little chunks happening through the day, we don't know. That's one part. Second, everybody has private lives. So are you taking some nap somewhere else, in a car, in a plane, 10 minutes? We don't know. That's one part. But assume that, okay, there are some people who are functioning well on these 4-5. So again, for this, we have a graph, like a U-shaped thing again. There are a very small fraction, and that fraction is maybe less than 5%, who need less than 6 hours. So that for any individual who starts following this should first realize that, am I in that lot? And that's one thing.
And how to do that?
No, you can't. So how to do that? So that brings us to this question that how do you know what is my sleep need?
Yeah.
So that is when you sleep and you wake up without any alarm, and you wake up feeling rested and fresh, and you go through the day fresh. So that's one of the best ways to find out that how many hours of sleep do I need. So there are people who are forcing themselves to get up at 5 to do some exercise, then they're tired, then they take a nap. So we don't know how many. Then they say they sleep 5 hours. So I think in short, we repeatedly say this, that please do not wear this as a badge of honor. So this is another thing of concern, that when during student life or later on, people talk to each other and say that, I'd only slept 5 hours and I was able to manage. So the person who's needing more sleep or sleeping well is actually made to feel guilty. And so in the colleges now that I'm seeing, that the poor kids who are sleeping more are being ridiculed. And, they're not made to feel a part of the other kids, that they don't belong. So it's not a good thing. So they are made to feel like almost ostracized, that, why do you need so much sleep?
So much sleep, yeah. That's correct.
So there is another entity which we've not talked about, but we are mentioning younger people all the time. So that's another entity which is getting missed as a diagnosis, and the delay in diagnosis is almost 10 years, even overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And that condition is called as hypersomnia or narcolepsy, meaning that you need excessive sleep.
Excessive sleep.
So we talked about control of sleep, but we didn't go into the details. But anyway, there is another newer molecule which has been discovered, which is like a master controller over the melatonins and stuff like that. And that's a molecule called as orexin.
Okay.
So what orexin does, it stabilizes the night sleep and keeps us very alert. So it does both. Now, imagine if something is keeping you alert and it's not there. So what will happen? The sleep will intrude into the day. So if you are sitting, talking, working, studying, you are just continuously falling asleep. So this disorder, unfortunately, comes around teenage.
Okay.
Now in teenage, lots of other things are happening. People are voluntarily sleep restricting, as we talked about. They have a delayed sleep phase. They are sleeping late. So first few years, it's all said that you are just a lazy person and your timings are not right. You set yourself right. This molecule also controls weight and appetite. So they tend to eat more, they gain more weight. So they're labeled definitely that you are lazy. So a few years passed like this. And then finally, it's realized that, they are sleeping properly, but they are still not functioning in the day. So I have more of 100 patients now on this. Average delay time in diagnosis more than 7 to 8 years. And we have doctors who've had a hard time. We have engineers who've had a hard time. Some couple of engineers now are working from home because they cannot, they're not able to do this 8-9 hours continuous. At home, we are allowed them to take a nap. I had some children where we've written to schools that please allow them to take a nap. So it's a very tough diagnosis, tough to manage. It's a long-term chronic. I just recently had one international young boy having a very hard time with studies, and the mother is now shifted in and is helping him, and just the father yesterday said that he's doing well in studies. So it's a tough thing to diagnose, but they need to be diagnosed, they need to be helped. Otherwise, then they get mental health problems. So they get depression. Then it's all said that you are lazy, you are sleepy, and you are depressed. but there is an entity. So that is, I think, needs to be highlighted. So these people, if anybody who feels that I am not fresh in the day, I'm sleepy in the day, needs to seek help.
Mm, mm. Great. In the world of the whole, information around the productivity, one of the things that is very strongly sort of put forth is afternoon naps. What are your thoughts on afternoon naps?
So that also recently there's been a lot of discussion and research on this. So nap is supposed to be, that's why the word comes up as a power nap.
Mm.
So these and people have proven that you take this short nap, you are more productive, and there's a fresh spark to the day. So the nap is good, number one. The issue is the duration of nap, the timing of nap. So duration, we want 10, 15, 20 minutes. Why? Because you will enter after that into deep sleep. And when you wake up from deep sleep, there is an entity called as sleep drunkenness. That you are very wobbly, you are very shaky, there is brain fog, so you don't feel good. So if you're taking that nap to feel good, then that impact is lost. So stage 2, when you get out of sleep, you are very much brighter. So the shorter the nap. Second is the timing. So we need this nap, it should be like middle of the day naps, like 2:33. So if you take this nap at 6 p.m., 5 p.m., it will interfere with your night sleep.
Night sleep.
So I think keeping in mind those two conditions, and there are people who are getting up like 4:35. From them, the day till 10, 11 is too long. Then they can take a short nap, 10, 15 minutes in the middle of the day.
You mentioned about adenosine and,
Caffeine.
yeah, right. So how the receptor for adenosine and caffeine is pretty much the same, right? So if you put in caffeine in there, then it impacts with your sleep, like you mentioned. So what's your thought about like coffee intake? Because I see a lot of people, one of the things that I have sort of said that if I want to have coffee, I have to have it before 12 or 1 p.m. I don't want to have it after because it have an impact for almost 6 hours.
Yeah, so caffeine, whether it is coffee, whether it is tea, whether it is chocolate, whether it is ice cream, colas, they all have caffeine. So the half-life of caffeine, that means half-life meaning that half of it is gone from your body in almost 6 to 7 hours. That means the rest is lingering.
Yeah.
So if you have a sleep issue and you realize that your body is sensitive, then yes, we please tell people, please finish it off before 12 noon. So that's also, now we know strange a bit that all this, like we said, acts on that receptor. Now these receptors are different in different people and the reaction to the caffeine is also different. So some people will tell us that, I take a cup of coffee and I'm able to fall asleep. So that's okay, that works for them. But if you have a sleep problem, one side you're taking a sleeping aid, then you're taking a cup of coffee at night. I mean, you have to just figure out what is right.
Yeah.
A little bit more logic is needed.
Yeah. You also mentioned about, the breaking up the sleep and stuff like that. So now let's move a little toward, first solution part of this, right? How can I try and fix, how can I create an environment where I can get the best sleep, and we can get into, details there. But, so let's understand like what are these. So one of the things that, I don't remember, maybe, a couple of years back, I read this where it said that there is a cycle of certain minutes that keeps on going, for your sleep. So if you wake in between the cycles, so can you help us understand what that cycle is and how long that one cycle runs for?
So when we sleep and when we wake up, we are not in one state. So we go through these different stages, as it's called. So what do these stages mean? So there is two major stages. One is called as a rapid eye movement. It's called rapid eye movement because the eyes were seen to move very rapidly by the first researcher who described it. He was happened to be, and he was monitoring, and he said, oh, the person is sleeping, but the eyes are moving very fast. So the simple terminology became rapid eye movement. Rest of the sleep, the eyes were not moving, so they were called non-rapid eye movement. And that's still carried on like this. So we first enter into non-rapid eye movement, and that has 3 stages, stage 1, 2, 3. One is a very light sleep. So people say that, I was sleeping and I could hear somebody coming in, putting on the light, off, closing the door. That means you're in light sleep. From there, you enter into a little deeper sleep, and that's called stage 2 sleep. Stage 2 sleep has become very important again because of memory, and there is spindles and stuff like that happening. There's a lot of basically networking happening in the brain. Lots of areas are kind of working together. And then from there, we enter into a stage called as stage 3, which is a deep sleep, which all these trackers are nowadays telling people that you've not had deep sleep, and people are getting very anxious. So that's another entity we can talk about, something called as orthosomnia. That is that you have become obsessed with the patterns of your sleep and you're getting worried about it. So that's orthosomnia as a
that's a condition
newer
as well.
entity has come. So then you enter into a REM sleep. So this 3 of non-REM, 1 of REM is called as a cycle.
Okay.
So that's usually about 90 minutes to 100 minutes types.
Got it.
So if you have 7 to 8 hours, we normally have 4 or 5 such cycles. So ideally we need that much. Then to go a little deeper, you also have to have certain times that you spend in that 2-3 REM. So you can sleep 8 hours, but suppose, let's say there's no REM. You are just roaming around in 1-2 and you wake up. So you have had quantity but not quality. Then you'll again be tired. So these are the other dimensions of a little deeper dimensions about sleep.
And how can one improve the quality
So
of
now
sleep?
there's a lot of talk on this, that how to improve quality, and now people are reading deep sleep ka function. They say, deep sleep is missing, so I'm not rested. So I want to increase my deep sleep.
Yeah, and you mentioned like there are rings that allows you to track how well
So
you
there are
slept
rings,
and stuff
there
like
are
that.
the watches, and
and so on
also.
and so forth. Yeah.
So basically, it will still go back to what we said earlier, that what keeps you asleep and what keeps you awake. And the other thing to remember is that my day, what I do, when I do, what we discussed, how I do, will impact my night. So there are simple, like you have 10 principles, you have 10 rules, but majorly things are that number 1 is a consistency in your bedtime and your wake up time. And that's called setting your circadian clock. So you kind of set it yourself. So bigger issue we are having now is that people are thinking that I set it really well for 5 days, but 2 days I sleep at 5. So but why am I having a sleep issue? So the body doesn't know it's your Saturday or it's your Friday or it's Monday. So better is to please set it. So fixed time for bedtime, fixed time for wake up. Then there are certain things which we discussed, is this: avoid certain stimulants. So stimulants can be in food, or it can be your own self, or it can be these lights or your environment.
Or maybe emotion.
Or emotions. So you're very stressed. So we say, no stressful pillow talk, we used to say. So think about something nice, something light, something happy, calm that brain down. The brain is actually just overstimulated. So caffeine is to be avoided close. Alcohol can disrupt the sleep. Nicotine is a stimulant. So all these very aggressive things that we watch, the light is a stimulant. So all that we should take care of. Third is the role of exercise. So exercise is one of the things which has been known, and there are big labs which are only studying role of exercise on sleep. So they've seen that exercise is one of the very good ways to increase your deep sleep. But again, the timing, like we talked about, timing of nap, there's a huge volumes on this exercise timing. So it should be definitely 2 to 3 hours away from bedtime, and adequate amount of exercise. Now people are sitting for the whole day, so then maybe you need 2 bouts of exercise, morning and evening walk, etc. Then the last parts are like your bedroom. So there's a lot of research about the impact of temperature.
Yeah.
So in a country like ours, it is hard that about this temperature, that not everybody has access to everything. So the temperature is a big factor. So we need cooler temperature to get good sleep. So temperature, the light, how much light is coming in. Ideally, the light should be
It
less.
has to be completely blocked up.
Preferably as less as possible.
Okay.
Because there are some people who are keeping the TV on and sleeping. So that light will never allow you to get into deep sleep.
Or maybe a lamp.
Yeah, so you will fall asleep, but then that light is going on stimulating a little. It's not allowing the melatonin to come up. Then the sound, so which again, sometimes you can control, sometimes you can't. You are at the very busy,
Facing the road,
yeah, then you can't help it. Then comes, of course, the room, the calm, the quiet, the clutter, the mattress, the sheet, etc. And a calming activity pre-bedtime.
Yeah, like
So
reading.
So I think this is another thing which people have to figure out which one. You want to listen to music, you want to read,
Meditate.
you want to do some shavasana, you want to do some pranayam, do something to calm the brain and have some barrier between the day and the night. So there is no
Transition.
transition. They just, you are doing something, you switch off the light, you lie down, you say, I can't sleep.
Yeah.
And the brain won't shut down. It's not a computer that you shut the desktop off or the laptop
I think
off.
that's a very interesting, important insight here. Yeah.
So we need a transition phase where just calm yourself down.
I think that's missing a lot, right? So we are on computer, we shut it down and like, okay, I want to go to sleep.
Then
and
you
I can't.
try and fall asleep, then you can't.
Yeah.
Then you take a sleep aid. So every day I'm facing this, that people are saying that, I'm lying down but I'm not able to sleep. So I'm not able to sleep. So then I have to get up, then I have to take a tablet or I take another drink. But that's not the reason. The reason is then you give yourself that half an hour, sit somewhere quietly, do something, write down something, do whatever, then allow yourself to sleep.
What's the ideal temperature that one should look at?
So they are saying it's about 20-21 degrees centigrade types.
So you need like a colder.
Cooler.
What's the logic there?
It stimulates and it's better for the certain areas of the brain, which are the sleep generators. So these experiments have been done in mice and they've cooled them and things like that at different temperatures. And they found at that temperature, that preoptic area where the sleep hormones come out, it works well best.
And that works for the, tropical country like ours as well?
It works everywhere. That's the ideal temperature. But it's how much we can get it is what, and how everybody can avail of it is a big issue.
So what are the things that parents who might be listening to this should know about getting sleep for their kids?
So I think important thing to also know is what is the sleep requirement according to age. So we talked about the adults.
Yeah.
Now we know that newborns, whoever has seen newborns, it's the saying goes that they sleep most of the time. So most of the time means that almost 16 to 18 hours they are sleeping. By 1 year, it will become maybe 13, 14 hours. By 2, 3 years, it's almost 11, 12 hours. By school toddlers, it's about 10, 11 hours. Then by teenagers, but you'll be surprised to know, teenagers in theory need about 9 to 9.5, which they never get. So now the parents again would be that what is the age of your child? So I have seen a lot of parents who are allowing the child to take 2 chunks of sleep, meaning that yes, the children are sleeping late. They're also watching something. The father comes back from work late.
Yeah.
So the child stays awake.
Yeah.
10, 11 baje, getting up for school at 6. So that's very little sleep.
Yeah.
Then they come back from school and take another big nap. So at that age, there's no need to take a nap. So we talked about the functions or the benefit of getting that long chunk of sleep. That benefit is not achieved by getting 2 broken halves of sleep. So the parents have to please realize that you please allow the kids to get that 1 chunk. The growth hormone comes up there, cortisols are suppressed, all those are very important. Thyroid hormones, for the gonadotrophic hormones, the sexual hormones, all have different peaks which are coming. So that's one part. Second, only thing that what parents do need to know, that when the child reaches a teenage, there is a natural delay in the secretion of melatonin. So if the child, let's say that everything was going well, the child is getting into bed, whatever, 7, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., falling asleep. Comes this teenage, which is now coming much earlier than even 13, they're not able to fall asleep. Because the melatonin has actually got pushed later.
Why is that?
It's just a physiological change. So if it was starting early, peaking, it's now got pushed more. So it's coming later and peaking later, another hour or 2 maybe.
Okay.
So you should have that much allowance and acceptance that, okay, now he was going to bed at 8:39, maybe now it will be 10:30. But the children push it till 2 because of their gadgets. So that much is one thing. That's why US has majorly worked on this advocacy and public policy and pushed school timings later for high school children. Many states have done it, and they find accidents are less, scholastic performance is better, substance abuse is less, moods are better, depression is less. So they are on this big move that for high school, please push the timing later so that kids can get some good sleep. Then, of course, the other thing, so this is sleep health. So there are two entities which we've been discussing. One is just general sleep health, and one is sleep disorders. So we have to keep both in parallel. The parents should also be very quick to recognize, does my child have a sleep disorder? So one, if the child is genuinely not able to fall asleep till 3, 4, maybe then that's a delayed sleep phase. So we need to work. If the child has a very restless sleep, is snoring, sitting up, coughing, very frequent respiratory infections, maybe the child has got child sleep apnea. So we have child sleep apnea. The child is getting up at night, walking, having some kind of abnormal movements, maybe having fits in sleep, maybe having something else. Then we come across this entity that the reports are coming that the child comes to school and sleeps off and, is not able to stay awake, continuously puts the head down. Child's grades start dropping, has become very aggressive, fights a lot. So all these parents should not just say, koi baat nahi, this will get okay. So take early cognizance and early help. Then things will get better.
And for the people who are, growing in the age, like people who get to a little older and, does this sleep like naturally sort of shortens?
Yeah, so like when aging happens in the body, like every organ goes through a change. So the brain also changes. So the cells where these chemicals are generated or released for sleep change. So in elderly, like say above 80 or 75, 80, sleep quality will be much poorer. Sleep duration will be much less. So I have people who are 80 wanting to sleep that I'm not able to get that deep sleep. So then we have to educate and share that you may not get such good sleep. But to get that good sleep, don't take a sleeping pill. So that's part of this therapy called as cognitive behavioral therapy.
CBT.
CBT. So CBT basically stands for this, that you make them aware or educate them about their sleep, make them understand what are the factors which are worsening, then suggest personalized remedy for them.
Great. So, for me, I'd like to believe that I've never had, problem with, sleep. I tend not to wake up during the night and, so on and so forth. And still I try to control my environment as much as I can. Things like, now you have these smart lights, right? So I automate that the moment clock hits 7, automatically the light sort of goes like yellow. So that, and then things like, keeping temperature low. And my recent discovery, which I absolutely love, is eye mask. Just put that one and it's completely dark, and those are the things I'm yet to get into, like the device and monitoring and get like geek out on the.
So I don't think you should. So we're telling people, please stay away from them. In fact, recently a friend of ours, he got this new ring. Somebody gave it to him. And he said, I've always been well. Does his regular yoga. He walks. He's very fit. But he came and saw me because he said, my sleep is not okay. I said, how did you come to know? He said, yeah, this gadget told me. And the gadget told him, he actually developed this thing, thought that my sleep is not okay. And he got really worried about it. And then I had to do a proper sleep study, a counseling, and I said, see, your sleep is okay, please keep that. And now he took off that ring, the gadget, and he's much better. So there is not a need not to measure sleep with this. Sleep is how you feel in the morning. Yeah. That's good enough. And you control your...
And that's a good question to ask, like how I'm feeling throughout the day. Am I feeling groggy? Feel in the morning. And, is my mood regulated and so on and so forth, right? A couple of months back, I realized that, of course, I didn't do any tests and stuff like that, but I could feel that, I'm more stressed and my cortisol level is, it's rising, and I had to do something about it. And I introduced, breath work and meditation. And then, all of a sudden I could almost instantly, breath work sort of bring down the cortisol level. So what are some of the practices that you personally, follow in your own life?
Yeah. So coming to this breath work, I'll tell you. So we did a research with the IIT boys sometime back with the biomedical group. The impact of a couple of these pranayam, om chanting, and objectively it was seen that your heart rate variability, it's called, it kind of really comes down. So there are two systems in our body, sympathetic and parasympathetic. So we are all in a very high sympathetic mode. So we need to get into the parasympathetic at some time. So this pranayam actually does that. So my practices are, I know a lot of my patients, first thing they ask me, are you sleeping well? So some days if I don't, I start thinking that maybe I'm going down that path, and it is a very scary thought. So I try to stay away from that thought, because one of the factors which worsens sleep is a worry about sleep. So we call it a perpetuating factor, which is the big model that we work on. But I think basically, like you said, fortunately, I've also been fortunate that it's okay so far. Besides, except once or twice, whatever. I do believe a lot that the day governs my night. So the wake up time is kind of fixed regardless of, and usually the bedtime wake up time is very fixed. So people say that there should be like a good morning routine and a good night routine. So I was in fact this morning only going over this morning routine. So there should be a walk, then there's yoga, then there is some time to yourself, then preferably reach the office at least 1 hour before everybody else comes down on you. So you have some mind space. So walk and yoga should be, or any spiritual practice or some breathing, so which basically calms you before the day kind of starts. Or if I'm walking around, then I'm just listening to some calming kind of something. So day is busy and then I have become particularly sensitive to caffeine. So I am very clear that I have to finish that coffee before 11:30, 12. Tea I can still manage now till 4:35, but after 5 I can't even have tea now. And dinner is usually light and early. So another thing that we are telling people is not to become too strict. So if you want to watch the TV, you can watch the TV, but the problem with this TV now has become that because of this continuity, people are not able to break it. So we do watch for a little while, but we do manage to put it off. And I don't really much like the very late night stuff. Because if the wake up time is fixed, then your body doesn't, and your working hours are, and we need in our line and profession to be very attentive and enthusiastic and supportive and empathetic through the day.
Yeah.
So you have to have that function happen well at night, then only you'll be good in the day.
True.
So I think, fortunately it's been okay. Unless then, like you have a presentation and if I have to travel, then you think that it's once in a while and it'll go away.
And that's still okay. Yeah.
So usually I also do an evening walk after work. Because then you prefer to do it in 2 lots.
Awesome. Any last sleeping hacks that you want to share to, other than what we have already discussed, to somebody who is listening to this? And maybe if somebody is really struggling with their sleep, where should they begin? Maybe, should they try and create this environment and things that we said in the first place, and then seek professional help, or maybe just consult and do this as well parallelly?
I think I would I say my mission has almost become to create awareness about sleep health. And so that is, and I'm glad we have people like you who are helping us do that, to reach a larger audience. One is, I'm also happy that over the years, it's getting recognition.
A lot.
It's due, a lot of recognition. Yeah. So they say it's a few billion-dollar industry apparently for the sleep coming up. So for people, I think it's important just to take a look into your own self and see how do you feel in the morning and how do you feel in the day.
Yeah.
And I think that will give people just a little bit of time to think. See, we are also becoming what are called as doers, We've stopped thinking, we've stopped sitting. In fact, there's a very interesting article which came that when do you think we are most productive or creative? Is when we are thinking, planning, or when you're sitting by yourself, doing nothing. So it's actually when you're doing nothing. So there is a network in the brain which comes up, which is called as default mode network, which actually goes to a real height if you're sitting by yourself. and just not doing something. So in other words, just think how you feel. And about the hack, see, another thing that you remember is that each individual is very unique. So there are, when I see a couple, one will say, that person puts their head on the pillow and sleeps, and I am not sleeping, and I'm more angry because the other one is gone to sleep. So each one is made very differently. Somebody has coffee, somebody doesn't have, whatever. Think what you are, what works for you. But remember that the day impacts your night. So don't start harping about the night if you've done nothing in the day about it. There are these self-help techniques. You figure out where am I going wrong. You make this checklist of yours. We have a concept called a sleep diary, which is available on my website also. That
I'll put that in the
then
description.
you know what happens. But if you feel that I am struggling, I have done everything and it's not working out, please do not delay for too long. And do not take advice from people who are not authorities and not from each other, definitely. Then seek help.
Yeah.
See, like I tell people, if you have 102 fever, how long will you sit with 102 fever or 100 fever? 2-3 days you'll take a paracetamol, then you'll meet somebody. No? So similarly, do not neglect it for too long. Meet early and resolve it early so that the day can be much better and you can be more healthier.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking this time out and helping us understand about the sleep. And I think, we have pretty much covered, a lot of things in this. And I think, this can be a great thought starter for somebody, who have never looked at their sleep and who have never bothered about like, hey, it's just part of my life. And maybe there's something else that I need to fix. That's why I'm feeling groggy and whatnot. But I think, now somebody who's listening to this, they can go down their own rabbit hole and, do a lot of research and study. And one thing that I want to acknowledge in this conversation is for everything that you are doing to, champion this here in India, because I think you are one of those people who, not like very recently like everyone else, right? You've been doing this for decades now. We've been talking about this and, deep into this ecosystem. So thank you so much for everything that you are doing and also, sharing your wisdom with our audience. It has been one great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to have talked to you. So hi, I'm Dr. Manvir Bhatia, a senior neurologist and a sleep specialist with more than 30 years experience in Delhi. It was a real pleasure and a great experience talking to Mr. Bijay for this podcast on sleep. I do it will help a lot of people to learn about sleep, improve their sleep, as he has done with so many more podcasts. Sleep is also going to get as much popularity and followers. I do hope so. Everybody else comes down on you, so you have some mind space. So walk and yoga should be, or any spiritual practice or some breathing, so which basically calms you before the day kind of starts. Or if I'm walking around, then I'm just listening to some calming kind of something. So day is busy and then I have become particularly sensitive to caffeine. So I am very clear that I have to finish that coffee before 11:30, 12. Tea I can still manage now till 4:35, but after 5 I can't even have tea now. And dinner is usually light and early. So another thing that we are telling people is not to become too strict. So if you want to watch the TV, you can watch the TV, but the problem with this TV now has become that because of this continuity, people are not able to break it. So we do watch for a little while, but we do manage to put it off. And I don't really much like the very late night stuff, because if the wake up time is fixed, then your body doesn't, and your working hours are, and we need in our line and profession to be very attentive and enthusiastic and supportive and empathetic through the day.
Yeah.
So you have to have that function happen well at night, then only you'll be good in the day.
True.
So I think, fortunately it's been okay. Unless then, like you have a presentation and if I have to travel, then you think that it's once in a while and it'll go away.
And that's still okay. Yeah.
So usually I also do an evening walk after work. Because then you prefer to do it in 2 lots.
Awesome. Any last sleeping hacks that you want to share to, other than what we have already discussed, to somebody who is listening to this? And maybe if somebody is really struggling with their sleep, where should they begin? Maybe, should they try and create this environment and things that we said in the first place, and then seek professional help, or maybe just consult and do this as well parallelly? Or, yeah.
Yeah, I think I would I say my mission has almost become to create awareness about sleep health. And so that is, and I'm glad we have people like you who are helping us do that to reach a larger audience. One is, I'm also happy that over the years, it's getting recognition.
A
that
lot.
It's due, a lot of recognition. So they say it's a few $1 billion industry apparently for the
it is.
sleep coming up. So for people, I think it's important just to take a look into your own self and see how do you feel in the morning and how do you feel in the day.
Yeah.
And I think that will give people just a little bit of time to think. See, we are also becoming what are called as doers, We've stopped thinking, we've stopped sitting. In fact, there's a very interesting article which came that when do you think we are most productive or creative? Is when we are thinking, planning, or when you're sitting by yourself, doing nothing. So it's actually when you're doing nothing. So there is a network in the brain which comes up, which is called as default mode network, which actually goes to a real height if you're sitting by yourself and just not doing something. So in other words, just think how you feel. And about the hack, see, another thing that you remember is that each individual is very unique. So when I see a couple, one will say, that person puts their head on the pillow and sleeps, and I am not sleeping, and I'm more angry because the other one has gone to sleep. So each one is made very differently. Somebody has coffee, somebody doesn't have, whatever. Think what you are, what works for you. But remember that the day impacts your night. So don't start harping about the night if you've done nothing in the day about it. There are these self-help techniques. You figure out where am I going wrong. You make this checklist of yours. We have a concept called a sleep diary, which is available on my website also. That
I'll put that in the
then
description.
you know what happens. But if you feel that I am struggling, I have done everything, and it's not working out, please do not delay for too long. And do not take advice from people who are not authorities and not from each other, definitely. Then seek help.
Yeah.
See, like I tell people, if you have 102 fever, how long will you sit with 102 fever or 100 fever? 2-3 days you'll take a paracetamol, then you'll meet somebody. So similarly, do not neglect it for too long. Meet early and resolve it early so that the day can be much better and you can be more healthier.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking this time out and helping us understand about the sleep. And I think, we have pretty much covered, a lot of things in this. And I think, this can be a great thought starter for somebody, who have never looked at their sleep and who have never bothered about hey, it's just part of my life. And maybe there's something else that I need to fix. That's why I'm feeling groggy and whatnot. But I think, now somebody who's listening to this, they can go down their own rabbit hole and, do a lot of research and study. And one thing that I want to acknowledge in this conversation is for everything that you are doing to, champion this here in India, because I think you are one of those people who, not like very recently like everyone else, right? You've been doing this for decades now. We've been talking about this and, deep into this ecosystem. So thank you so much for everything that you are doing and also, sharing your wisdom with our audience. It has been one great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to have talked to you.